Hey all, and hobby update for you with the coming of the old world. I'm here trying to figure out, what should I do next? What's the next step? And I've began looking at what army I'm going to play in Warhammer the Old World. So I have a pretty sizable greenskin army, which I don't think necessarily conveys where I am now like it did back in the 2000 noughties. I think it was a very naughty army indeed. And I don't know, there's a little bit of madness there I'm not after the same kind of thing, I think. I still have a really big soft spot for night goblins. Or gloomspite gits, as Age of Sigmar will have us call them. Beautiful models, and I've always loved the character and just all of that of night goblins. But, what do I play? And that was that problem. We have the 9 factions to choose from. And, my old foe that I played a load against was dwarves. It was one of the things that dwarves and vampire counts. And vampire counts are not one of the 9 big supported. And I know you can come in with a thing, but... And I just like the idea of looking at things from the other side. And I like dwarves, and I'm liking the whole Viking thing at the moment. And, runic symbols and stuff. And so, they're like little mini Vikings, right down to like the cliched kind of horn hats that... helms that they'd have never worn, obviously, because you grab their horned, grab them by that. And, you don't want to give the enemy anything easily accessible, effectively. They'd have a drinking horn, perhaps, right, that they'd carry. But so a friend of mine, Laurie, who you may remember back in the past of the channel and the whole thing and the thing that we did, the whole Dark Heresy and all the everythings. In Dragon Age, we do the whole two of us on screen and do the bit. So he's looking at getting back into the hobby too. He's been talking a bit about Bretonnians. So he used to play the dwarves. So we may bite and go for the Bretonnians. And I pointed out to him, this is really beautiful. We've got knights now on foot, and they're well gorge. That whole kind of oomph that you get from Chaos Warriors. But oh my God, it's Bretonnian foot soldiers, right? Pretty cool. So he's parted company with his dwarves, and we're going to work out like a part exchangey type thing and whatever. So I've been applying paint to some of these guys already. So this I received this as an undercoated black, and I've started just getting some lead boucher on there, just on all the whole weapon at the moment, and try to like blob a bit of Bugman's glow or whatever it's called, I think it's that, into the flesh areas. It's hard to see the dwarf's faces and that and what you're doing, so it's just blob it in at the moment just so that we're there, and then when we come to do the beards, we'll neaten that up. It's easier to, if you've got like a recessed part in here and then the outer parts out here, it's easier to just blob in untidy, get some on this, because you're going to paint this a different color anyway, so you'll neaten it off and then leave that painted, and then you can work it out. And obviously shading will knock that back in a bit more as well. So yeah, that's kind of happening. And for the main kind of spot color, I don't know if it's really going to show up well on camera, but you see that dark blue kind of color, and we've started it on the shield there as well. That is Incubi Darkness. So that is an interesting color. It's always been a nice color to me, Incubi Darkness. As it can't quite make up its mind, can it, if it's blue or green or what it is. But it's a very, very dark color, so I have to highlight up carefully with this shield. The decals of the shield, I'm going to do gold. And the rim of the shield, I'm going to do gold. And like the decals, for instance, on the weapons, I'm going to pick out gold. So silver, gold, and that Incubi Darkness blue. And I've just stuck a bit of brown on the boots as well at the moment. So getting those base colours on before we start needing to put the washes down and start the highlighting process up. I've never used contrast paints. Have you guys had a good time of it with contrast? I'm not going to probably do it on this project now, but yeah, I'm going to be painting a sizable amount of dwarfs as we go. So the main issue that I've had, aside from being able to source some models from Laurie, his models, which kind of helped at the moment because it gave me something to work on so I can begin to get ahead of the game, because constructing an army, putting it together, a painted army, is a huge job. And so it takes many, many weeks, many, many months to do that. It could take, a year or more, or several years even, to put an army together, depending, on how much free time you have and how much you can handle doing in one go, painting and that. And I have a few ideas and thoughts on this about the best way to bring an army in with very, very small games, kind of like 500 points things, and building from there. I'm kind of all about that, a couple of units and a hero, and then learn how those work first. And I have a pretty good idea from old of how dwarfs operated anyway. And I was always into the idea of like an engineer type army, that sort of build. So gyrocopters and mechanical whatnots, organ guns probably, and black powder, and just all that whole bit. The other thing, though, just generally, like looking ahead at the gaps within the army there that are present, like how to source everything. So I've started looking, for instance, at rangers, and I think the intent of rangers, they used to have some rangers that you could just buy, and I think the Quarrelers box set comes with, like, I don't know, just shields or whatever, and you stick them on, and then it's supposed to be rangers or whatever. I don't know, but it's not very convincing. I don't buy it, and I won't buy it. I want rangers to really look just different, because rangers are different in the lore. Rangers are the dwarves, the weird dwarves that have gone away from the hold, and they're doing other stuff, and they go out and about. They don't stay in the hold like most dwarves would. They range about, and you'll see a lot of them for sale with, say, third-party companies, and with Lord of the Rings as well, which are more ranger-like than the Warhammer Fantasy / the Old World Rangers are, with the hoods and that whole deal. And I think it's a nice change to the profile, the idea of having this one unit and they've got these, the green hoods on or whatever, because suddenly you've got this, ooh, those are strange, those are different, and they are strange, and they are different, and they do operate differently. So I think something, needs to show that, really, rather than just be, oh, that's dwarves that do something differently. Oh, it's just some warriors, basically, armed slightly differently or whatever. So it might be the one unit that I have to go to third-party, 3D print, blah, 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 blah. And that's kind of annoying, given that, everything else could even be GW legal. But if my rangers are not, then I can't take that to an official tourney. Not that I probably ever would, because it doesn't tend to be my scene. Like the official tourneyness and whatever, maybe local tourneys would be fine. But just like looking ahead and trying to source stuff, seeing the Age of Sigmar kind of lines that are compatible, that are workable for fantasy, all of that stuff's out of stock everywhere. And therefore, prices on eBay are really, really high as well for any units that will cross over right now into the Old World, because you can't buy them, which is why they cost so much. They're temporarily OOP. So, and just the madness of this release, even trying to source the books, has been a heck of a thing. I got lucky. I stumbled by a shop that managed to have this in stock, which is the Warhammer, the Old World Forces of Fantasy. Strange that they called it that. And now the Forces of Fantasy book, what they've done is they've put all 5 armies in here: Dwarfen Mountain Holds, Empire of Man, Kingdom of Bretonia, Wood Elf Realms, and High Elf Realms. So you got like the lot basically in there. All the profiles for all that stuff. So I'm figuring towards, I took a look at the dwarves section and started thinking about it and doing that. Because when you construct an army, it starts in here. And you start kind of imagining kind of how your force would work, and what looks good and what looks bad, and all that kind of thing. What would be enjoyable, what would synergize well, and these are the considerations. Lovely little bookmark thing all built in here. So I can imagine probably at the very least an allied contingent of Empire as well. But I quite like the idea of what Empire are doing right now as well. I don't really care about what's strong in the meta and all that kind of business. But yeah, Empire seem to be... they would probably help the shortcomings of the dwarf army anyway, as a small contingent force that you can take to support your army. Not that I'd do it every game. It would just be sort of there as a sometimes thing, maybe. And or, you know, a full-on Empire, Altdorfian, Reichland kind of type force, I think. I like the idea of white and red and off-white type schemes, which, yeah. However, you know, again, you know, the official line there, I don't know. Some of those 3D printed ones look really good. I'd say Highland Miniatures, the 3D prints there, pretty nice. Same also goes for their dwarves, but you know, that would have been the next stop to maybe pick up if I'd have had trouble sourcing here. Of course, I've got another issue with the basing that still needs to be addressed, because these are the original 20mm, and we'll do another video talking about my thought process on that. So we've got this, we've been reading it, and I managed to just very, very recently pick up this, which is the main rule book. And what a chunk of a tome it is! It's they did not have this in the shop. I bought it, but not from a scalper. It was for a fair price, basically, for effectively the price of it, plus the add-on of like the templates and dice and stuff, for a fair price of what they would cost on top of the book. So that's all I paid. Pretty decently, actually, on eBay. So, because I don't like to encourage the full-on like scalpers thing when it's a thing that's not OOP, and when it's just that GW haven't made enough stock of it. If it's a completely OOP item and that's the end of the story, well, you've got a different claim on the thing, I think, probably. But you know, we could have a whole argument about like limited edition people that buy up all of those and then scalp them on eBay or whatever. It's not fun, is it? It's not fun for the community, the hobby. It's not healthy, really. So this thing, just like before, we've got a whole chunk of lore at the beginning, and then we go into the rules, and then at the end we're going to have like pictures and towards the end. So like a whole chunk of the book's going to be photographs and stuff to just inspire you, like loads of photographs, and then we'll have all the scenario stuff and campaign battles and narrative battles, and you know, the actual magic schools will all be at the back. And so that's kind of how they're working that out. It's not just pure rules when you look at a book like this. So I was lucky to get hold of this. So I'm going to go through this very, very slowly, and we'll have to obviously reread it multiple times. And you know, the idea on approach to this is, even though I played like 6th and 7th edition, is to not assume I know anything. Basically, I know nothing. Even though I remember kind of how a whole bunch of stuff worked, there's going to be minute changes to stuff that just change it just enough that if you think the rules are the same, you'll get it wrong. So you have to read it and come in with open eyes and try to experience the book for what it is, which so far is a very interesting 6th edition-ish, 6th, 7th edition-ish book with other edition elements baked in as well, and some new ideas effectively. And you know, maybe we'll do a video where we analyze the rulebook a little bit more and kind of some of the changes that have come about. Anyway, that's the hobby. That's where we are. We're painting dwarves, and because they're dwarves, they're very, very small, so a little bit of magnification eyewear with light on is in order, methinks. And I'll see you at the table. But first, I'll see you at the hobby bench.